Heather Ramsey. I'm a Director of Customer Success here at Dataiku. I'm very excited about this panel discussion. We are going to hear today about the real-world experiences of two of our valued customers. So we're going to explore their journeys from their initial decision to use Dataiku, their future plans, and most importantly, the tangible benefits that they have received from Dataiku and what they've realized during their journey with Dataiku. So I'm going to start by asking G and Needy to please introduce themselves and their companies.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for keeping up the attention because I know we're getting to the close of the day. My name is G, and I work with Sun Life Financial, which is a U.S. operations from Sun Life Canada. Sun Life Canada is actually the second largest insurance carrier in Canada, and Sun Life US is a leading provider of health and group benefits. Again, like group benefits, including life insurance, disability. Just being very mindful, the audiences here probably are not very familiar, with the insurance operations here. And Sun Life also is the third largest carrier for stop-loss insurance. So there are some people who here are working in the healthcare space. Stop-loss is becoming a very popular insurance product in terms of providing higher layers of insurance coverages for very catastrophic, diagnosis. And then the product has grown tremendously in the last few years. It's a $3 billion in-force book of business. The industry is at $30 billion right now. My role with Sun Life US is Director of Data Science with a stop-loss business analytics team. The team was formed in 2020, and then we have been using Dataiku from 2023. But my personal journey with Dataiku started 6 years ago.
I'm Nidhi Ketrapal. I'm from Sage Therapeutics. We are a life science company. We're located right here in Cambridge. Sage is very focused on neuroscience, so all therapies related to brain health. We recently launched the first oral treatment for postpartum depression, and as that is just very less understood disease state, so I always try to make a plug for that. I lead the data and analytics team in Sage, so my team has a flavor of data engineers, analysts, and data scientists. Like the way we have our operating model is that we have put all of these roles under one umbrella.
Okay, thank you both. So in the marketplace, we are seeing when we think about digital transformation that companies have a lot of pressure to get up and running, pressure to show value, pressure to really understand how to thread that needle between what projects are feasible and then what is the business impact for those projects. So both of you are fairly early on in your journey with Dataiku at your current companies. I know, G, you mentioned you've been using it for a while, but not necessarily in your digital transformation journeys. So if you don't mind, at what point did you realize that you wanted to partner with Dataiku at your current companies? What helped you make that decision? And then also, maybe talk about a few key points that you had to utilize in your conversations with executive management.
Yes, so I can start. So I've mentioned that the team was newly formed back in 2020, and over the last few years, we started to have wider footprints with the business operations. And then as a result of there's a need for skill, for skill in terms of people, technologies, and then the use cases. And then in 2023, because I actually have used Dataiku before, and I kind of recommended, Dataiku as a go-to platform for the teammates to do a POC. Essentially, what happened was the POC take apart two pretty big use cases that we've already built elsewhere. You can think of like pages of Python code notebooks and pages of R code notebooks, and then through that POC, the folks from Dataiku help us build out the workflows, as you've seen in some of the previous talks, and then demonstrated the transparencies, the options for low code, no code, collaborations, all of those things that I have mentioned. So in terms of business cases, we definitely shared, the learnings from that POC, but in a way, it's no-brainer for us. In terms of enable us to scale, and then have this very thorough end-to-end ML workflow that the team needed at the point. So it's a critical, very timely decision to do that back in 2023.
So we have been using Dataiku for a year now, and before that, for a couple of years, we had invested a lot in our data foundational capabilities, but we were at a point where our analyst footprint was growing, and we were also getting a lot of questions from our business, so we were looking for something to speed up that time to market type of insights. And then as we looked at what's available in the market, a couple of things to us that stood out. One was it fit very nicely with our existing ecosystem. I think your VP of product was talking about all the things that you guys are doing to fit with an existing ecosystem, because none of these products can be in siloed. We always look at all of these as ecosystem of capabilities, so we definitely checked that mark for us. The other thing, I think the training and just the ease of onboarding and learning of the platform in comparison to others, at least for our analysts, was much smoother. And the last thing I would mention is we wanted to have a platform that's all for multiple types of capabilities, right? We didn't want to go find something for self-service analytics, another for machine learning operations. So it was one platform that helped solve many of these different capabilities for us. So again, it was an easy choice.
Awesome, thank you. Do you have something else, G?
Oh, no, yes, maybe one more thing to add is going to some of the conversation we have, the decision we made, we have actually expert data scientists on the team, but our key partners is actuarial team, which they are not very familiar with the coding, but also the team is looking to add business analysts. So again, it's catering to different kind of users. I do want to, add to that. It was part of the consideration as well.
Awesome. So part of this digital transformation that your companies are going through, an important part, especially to me because I'm customer success post-sale, and you guys know that your customer success managers, is really change management. So maybe a little bit, tell us a little bit about your experience in managing through the change management in regards to this digital transformation.
I can start. So we started our digital change management journey 4 years ago. I think the first thing we did as part of that we changed the name of our group. So we are not IT anymore. We don't have IT in Sage anymore. So we're digital and enterprise capabilities, which is just like the tech organization. I think the other thing we did, because we are a mid-sized company, I think it was more possible for us to do that in comparison to some of the other bigger players, is to just take, we have only one Chief Innovation Officer, Chief Digital Officer, Chief Technology Officer. You can keep going, but all of those things are under one umbrella for our organization. I think that those two things were really key for us, for that change management piece. And I think after that, again, we have been repeating that because repetition is a thing. It only sticks if you keep repeating it. And the way we think about these things are, again, not just from the technology perspective. I think that was the theme we were talking about. Has to be tech, people, process, all of those things coming together. And then keep repeating that, and hopefully will stick.
Yeah, so for us, the change management is mostly with the stakeholders we support. When we introduce advanced analytic applications, there's the change management comes into multiple folds. With that, I wanted to mention we actually start to establish two type of roles with our business stakeholders. One is what's called the business product owner. So those are the key individual that sits in underwriting, sales, claims that they meet with the analytic product owner on a frequent basis on the initiative we work on. So that's one piece of the change management, like relating the initiative we work on and having those teams be ready when those initiatives are rolled out. There's a lower level, it's called analytic championship. So those are the individuals who actually are impacted by our applications. So again, they are pretty close to our build, development or deployment, to the extent that they can be the champion when their peers are having questions on the process or the solutions we provided. There's one thing I want to mention is there's definitely the element of threat or scare with AI replacing the jobs, okay? So how we position our tool is its decision support. And then, we are there to assist your decisions. You're the ultimate decision maker. So I think that probably helps with some of the change management. And there's another component is that I feel like you have to involve your people, your stakeholders in the build and deployment, but you have to keep in constant contact with them. So we actually have like weekly office hours with some of the use cases we deploy where they can ask questions, but you also need to develop metrics to measure whether they're using your tools or not. So those comes into like the leading indicator, how many searches they've done, how much of them have used, actually the decision to support for their, pricing decision, etc. And there's like, ultimate business outcomes, like we're measuring, from the fact they're using it, is it making the impact to the profit revenue, how we're retaining the business, how we're converting the business.
So let's dig into that a little bit more. Let's dig into the value. If you don't mind, discuss a little bit about how you found something that was meaningful and measurable to quantify the value of Dataiku for your stakeholders and also for your executives.
Yeah, so I actually feel like from what Kathy was sharing early on, I feel like we are pretty good in terms of threading through from capability to business values. So like my squad is building on like solutions to enhance technical pricing, market pricing, etc. And that come through from multiple use cases that are worked on the squad. And then we deploy these solutions, and then like we measure the leading metrics. We measure the business outcomes. The business outcomes are always related as how much revenue we help gain. In some cases it's a pretty easy. Their segment we're not selling. Now you have this tool we're selling. It's a very easy math to come up with the incremental revenues, and then like how much profit we gain. How much additional business we end up retained, how much additional sales we end up, added to the book. So it's pretty convincible when the business see that. So the other thing I want to share is that the guiding principle of our team, is everything has to be able to demonstrate through business outcome. So whenever we develop these initiatives, the first thing we do is to build up the business case in terms how much additional policy we can bring in, how much additional revenue, etc. So those are kind of the very disciplined thought process, I feel, when it comes to develop these applications.
Yeah, for us, I think we look at it very similarly to, as you said, like what is the problem that we're trying to solve for? In one example, like market research, it's a very text-heavy type of use case. So if we wanted to do market research for like whole central nervous system, that's a very, very huge space to do market research on many different dimensions, right? So generally, it would have taken us 6 months, brute force way of going and doing that research, coming up with insights and whatnot. We were able to do that in 8 weeks. And it's the other part of it, which I think is sometimes overlooked, is the secondary and the thirdary questions that you can answer once you solve these problems in the right way. Otherwise, from a market research, you're going to get a deck, and that's fine. And then once you have second question or third question, then you're going to go back and do more research, which is another 6 months before you know the answers to that. But I think the way to show the value of some of these newer techniques is to say, first, it's cutting down the time from 6 months to 2 months, and it's also cutting that second cycle time down, the third cycle time down. So that was one. And the other one, one of our use cases were where we were actually outsourcing some of our analytics capability. So we brought that in-house, and with the same cost, we were able to do 3 times the more use cases than what we were able to do before, right? So it's just like the metric's going to be different in different use cases. You just have to be very clear and aligned with your stakeholders, like what is exactly the thing that we're going to measure the end of like this specific use case.
Awesome. So now let's think a little bit maybe about future use cases. If you don't mind, share in the next 12 to 18 months, what is one priority use case that you would like to get rolled out? And then also, if you can think of it, what is a use case or something that you're going to hold Dataiku accountable for in this partnership that we have with you going forward next 12 to 18 months?
So one of the things, so we are a life sciences company. So when we rolled out the market research use case, this is an interesting story because then our research organization got very interested, and one of their use cases is, I think somebody was saying, pharma has a lot of textual data, and if you look at the research side of pharma, it's just like whatever, rivers and rivers, oceans of textual data in there. So, and also there's a lot of historical, right? Like every pharma has been running their studies for years and years, right? So there could be a study that we ran 5 years ago where the people who ran the study might have left, but there is still a lot of value in the data itself, right? So one of the ideas from our research folks is to actually look at some of the historical data that we have and see what of that is still relevant for our existing programs. And the other one is that, again, we write a lot of documentation for all sorts of submissions, and that is a very time-consuming activity. So if we can reduce that time, like the initial draft of that documentation, again, depending upon where we are submitting it, we have to be very careful. It's a very regulated industry, but there are many submissions where it's not really going to FDA all the time. So you can pick up use cases where they are less risky. But those are the use cases. It was very interesting that we showcased something, and then the research folks, which I think is always a little bit cautious in these scenarios, have come back and said, we want to explore more.
Yeah, so for us, so we're actually about 2/3 of the way into the Dataiku. So I think for the next 12 months to 18 months, we're looking to mostly move some of the deployment from another legacy platform we were using to Dataiku. So that comes into twofold: is the web app hosting. Our business end users access the application results from these apps, and they're actually in the production mode in support of their operations. So the access and then being able to call these apps in a real time in a very fast manner is a critical requirement of these deployment. The other use cases we have is real-time live scoring. Again, our model supports the quoting. So as a result of that, right now it's really the busy season. You can't imagine how the sales and underwriter, how busy they are, in terms of quoting for those. So there's, if they change some specification on the quotes, the model would have to be able to generate new results and being able to tell them, what's the recommendation. So that's a key aspects of how we anticipate to get out of Dataiku.
Okay. Are you currently leveraging Gen AI, or are you planning to in the future for your upcoming use cases? And if so, or when you plan to use it, maybe talk a little bit about how you're balancing the risk versus reward and the unknown, and just how you're going to move forward with that.
So yeah, there are two use cases that we are currently, from the GenAI perspective. One, as I was saying, like all our market research for the CNS space was a GenAI use case. Like we could have gone and just done a brute force market research. That is generally how market research is done. But the way we solved that one was to get all the public sources of data, our internal, some other things that we needed, some other data licenses that we have, and then we fed that into a GenAI model, and then we are able to get a lot of answers for that. So that's one. On the commercial side of our house, because again, we're pharma, we do research, and then we make therapies, and then we actually put them in market. So on the commercial side of our house, a lot of our sales people are going and having the conversations with the physicians, right? So there is a lot of conversational data that we have. Same thing for our medical teams. They're going and having the conversations. So we were able to take a lot of that conversational information and do some analysis, because before we would just say that the sentiment is this or that. But now we are able to actually say why the sentiment is what that is, and the next time our salesperson is going to go have a conversation with the physician, they exactly know what type of conversation they should be having, what is exactly the concerns are, if it's a concern, if there's something else, whatever. But those are the two use cases, one from research and one from commercial, that we were able to again, at least put in production and show the value.
Yeah, so for us and the team members, I'm going to jump on the low-hanging fruit, actually, the VP mentioned early on. So we have quite a bit of unstructured data, from the RFP submission and also when the underwriter handle the cases. And then so we kind of are a candidates of limited, data input, from our business end users. So you look forward to be able to extract some of that data and prove that it can improve the model performances. But there's also an operational side. Again, people would manually input elements from these unstructured, .pdf, etc. So there has been use cases developed on the team that leveraging the prompt engineering, and then the underwriter can ask the questions. Okay, so what's the life size of this employer? Things like that, without them having to look through the RFP to set up the cases. Yeah.
Okay, last question. This room is full of data and business leaders. So what practical advice would you like to give to them as they're thinking about their own journey with Dataiku and their own digital transformations, and most importantly, their real-world return on AI?
Go first. Sure. So I think one thing that we early on aligned on, that we were not going to have a separate AI strategy. We're just going to have whatever Sage is corporate strategy, and we took AI to enable that strategy. I think that was one of the decisions that we made. We still have AI governance group, because we wanted to make sure we had the guidelines and we understand the security. So we have a working group which is made of our legal counsel. I think it's very important, at least in pharma, to make sure the IP is protected. Our compliance folks, some of our business folks and tech folks, right? So we do have a group of folks, but they're more putting together the guidelines. But from this pure strategy perspective, we did not have a separate AI strategy, because when you have a separate AI strategy than your business strategy, then I think it's very difficult to align those two. So I think that is one thing that has been very useful for us, in a way, to just align the business around the use cases we are doing, and they're just part of it, right? Because we're not going on the side and solving for something different. So that is one. The other thing I think it's been talked about is that whatever use case we have been working on, it is with with the business, with the users. So they're not separate. It's not like the tech teams are going and building something. They are part of building that. And mostly we have been able to do this like fairly quickly. So we're not taking a year and coming back to say, now we're going to show the value. So to make sure like they are engaged, you have to solve for some of these wins quickly. So 2 to 3 months, whatever is the right time frame, but not going on that journey alone.
Right. So for us, I personally actually had a mind shift years ago, because I started my career as a data scientist. So the mind shift is actually viewing your business and users as your customers, and everything should be oriented towards that. And then I think the other element I wanted to bring up is that tooling platform is actually easy. I think the harder ones is to identify, work with your stakeholder, refining the business problem, come up with the solutions, and then stick with them, making sure they're adhering what you're telling them to do and measure the outcome. That's actually the harder aspects. So for some of the use cases I have built.